that many union radicals continued to work in the mines despite the card system. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, Coca-Cola Consolidated, which is, I'm told, the largest independent Coke bottler in the country. Evidently, it's being reported that they have returned and joined the American Legislative Exchange Council. Alec, you may remember there was a big push a couple of years ago to get all of the big corporations who were funding ALEC to bail on them. Walmart, Coke, UPS, there are a bunch of them. And there was a big push to expose what the American Legislative Exchange Council was doing, basically writing our laws, handing them to legislators that they had cultivated, wined and dined and funded, and got their legislation pushed through. And there are those who say, well, that's the American system. And it is. It's money at work. To see now this largest bottler of Coke products now joining back, to me, sending the wrong message, and kind of scary that, we haven't been paying too much attention to this. And here to share some thoughts on why this might be important and where what we should be doing. I've asked Ivy Schlegel to come talk with us. She's a research specialist there at Greenpeace International. Ivy, thanks for taking time for us.
Hi, Rick. Great. Thanks.
So am I getting this right that we've got this Coke bottler, the largest here in the U.S., who have now decided, nope, we want to go back to funding ALEC, and we're going to be part of the American Legislative Exchange Council's attempt to subvert our democracy and overwrite our laws and buy our laws?
Yeah, we were just as surprised as you to see this news yesterday, especially as for all the reasons that you've said. No company affiliated with Coca-Cola should be going anywhere near the American Legislative Exchange Council, especially with all that we know now about its years of lobbying for an oppressive and discriminatory agenda.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is and this is one of those moments where, most people have never heard of ALEC and never heard of them before a couple of years ago. And these are people who, companies have paid for years to write model legislation that legislators then take and put their name on it, probably don't even read it, and push it through our legislative process. And this is how corporations get their way, where we the people don't. So I think exposing this is really important. And I guess the other question is what can we do about it?
Well, this is a great question. I think one of the things, as you point out, many people don't realize, and one of the reasons why ALEC has been so successful is that it has often been secretive. So, change a few words here and there into this legislation, and, then it can continue. And at this point, sometimes, the legislators can just write what they think ALEC might want to see. So a lot of times the corporations are, looking to, sort of gain brownie points. Legislators might want to show their right-wing stripes, and so they're trying to sort of guess what might the model legislation be and write it to conform to that. So, I think being aware of the role of corporate lobbyists, they benefit when it's secretive. They benefit when people don't know what's going on. And I think that having the corporations, they are more accountable to their consumers, and so that's why we've seen when they hear from their consumers that the consumers are unhappy with the advocacy efforts that they're taking. If they're on the wrong side of things, they will respond. And they were running scared on this, as you said, years ago. So.
Yeah, while people were paying attention, and now I guess the pressure is tapped down a little bit. So then the next question that comes into my mind is, why would this Coca-Cola Consolidated company, the largest, the independent bottler of Coca-Cola, why would they at this moment choose to sign up? Is there something that they're expecting to come down the line? Is there something that you can think of that would make them go, hey, we need this and we need it now, and we'll take the political heat, we'll take the bad PR. We can't have Joe Biden and those evil Democrats do something bad.
Yeah, it's hard to say. So, I don't want to speculate entirely, but as a soda bottler, one of the largest in the United States, they could have a lot of reasons for wanting to lobby, all different kinds of regulations they want to influence, create the conditions more favorable to themselves. But one thing we do know related to soda, is the issue of plastic pollution. And this is something as more and more people become aware of the scope of the plastic pollution crisis. You see the pictures of the turtle in its nose, and more communities have stepped up and started to take action and started to regulate plastic, a ban on plastic bags or plastic straws, or taking it even further, and banning all different types of plastics. So we know from our research that ALEC has worked for the plastic industry and has developed model bills to fight plastic bag bans, and has been very active in banning those bag bans. So this is something that ALEC has been doing. So you could imagine that a company that sort of does rely on plastic for its business model might have an interest in ensuring that type of legislation continues. And just, yeah.
No, you're right. That's where my mind goes. And one of my big problems with Coke and Nestle and a number of, and even Pepsi is, they're the largest bottlers of water in the country. And I'm going, why in the hell are we putting water into plastic bottles? When I was a kid, you had drinking fountains in every park and every school. You had all kinds of things. We didn't put water in bottles, in plastic bottles, and throw them away constantly. It seems
Absolutely.
stupid to me that you would pay more for a bottle of water than you pay for a gallon of gas.
It is, and the PR industry associated with the plastics industry has worked overtime to convince people of this fact. And so not only is the plastic bottle necessary that they said, but you have to wrap it in shrink wrap to keep it safe. And one of the things that we saw this year, especially in the early days of the pandemic, we saw the plastics industry just go into overdrive, exploiting people's fears around the coronavirus to make people believe that the reusable bags were spreading the coronavirus. So all of these different fossil fuel funded front groups started spinning these stories and passing off industry funded research. Many of these have been affiliated with ALEC and have been behind this model legislation for years. So, this is what you see when an industry is desperate to retain its myth. If that's all it has is this myth that plastic is necessary, it'll double down on that. And it's really shameful.
No, it is shameful, and which is why when I saw this story that this evil monster is coming back, and someone's funding it, immediately my mind goes to why, and then how do we make sure that whatever it is that is being worked on in the back rooms, when the money calls are being made, how do we shine light on it? How do we draw attention to it? And how do we get people to know when it pops out that we speak out against it?
Right. And Coca-Cola is one of the largest users of plastic out of all of the brands. It's constantly in the top rankings for top polluting companies. They have an enormous influence over, the rest of the industry. And so if they stepped up and shifted away from plastic, this would also have a ripple effect across the whole industry. They could, or as you mentioned, drinking fountains and, water bottles, we could have a different kind of soda industry, beverage industry, that relied on reuse models, and companies like Coca-Cola could take additional steps and innovate and use all of their resources and logistics supply chains to really innovate new solutions. And I think with people, we sort of know what's at stake. Our entire planetary health is at stake. We need to resolve the plastic pollution crisis and the climate crisis. So these companies, they have a lot more to do. And so far from Coca-Cola, we have seen very little action from them. We've seen a lot of promises, and they really amount to very little then sort of focus on recycling and sort of other false solutions.
So what do you think the future of the industry would, if you had a vision of where it would go, where would it go? I mean, when I was a kid, soda came in bottles, and they were heavy. Transportation was difficult. You had glass problems. There was arguments against that as well. So what is the direction forward then if plastic isn't the answer? Because I know some of my conservative friends are going, well, then what are you going to go to, smart guy? This is the easiest. This is the best solution we have. Where are you going? So what would be a better solution?
Yeah, like I said, there isn't an easy solution, and we are at a time, and the scale, scope, urgency of our climate chaos and climate violence really requires us to really think bigger. So we all have to play a part. And I think that, there are some transportation challenges. We believe that these can be overcome. We believe that whole innovative systems of reuse are possible. They're doable. They can be safe. They can be safe and sanitary even during the pandemic. We think there's value in good jobs to be had. So I think if you think about these things in a holistic way, reuse could become, more commonplace. Exactly like you said, we just use things so quickly for seconds, and that was so much natural gas that went into it. So there could be even systems like, cities and municipalities could sort of have, different kinds of reuse. Even now we could be using dishwashing in restaurants that are currently sitting idle and have sort of a, citywide system. So there's lots of different ways it could happen.
Yeah, but we were told that by recycling, every day, my wife gets on me. Oh, you got to put that in the recycling. You got to make sure it's got a number on the bottom. Make sure you get it in the recycling bin. We were told that we could use this stuff and recycle it. It wouldn't be bad. Isn't that isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
That is what we have been told. I am like your wife. I look at everything. I look at the number. Very diligent about my recycling bin. But the more I've researched and the more data we all understand and can see about the recycling industry, we can see that it's just not working. They've had years to build it up and build it out. To date, only 9% of the plastic ever produced has been recycled. And we have very low annual recycling rates. And there's no way that any of the recycling can keep up, especially with the planned increase in plastic production. So, it's just this continuous flood of plastic coming into, our homes every day, and recycling isn't the answer. It isn't the way out of it.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, again, this is going back into the 70s and 80s. They had glass soda bottles, and you used to collect them, take them back to the store, and they would give you money for them. You had to pay a deposit on them when you bought the stuff, and you brought them back. You got your money back. Is that a solution forward? Did that work at all back then, or was that just something they trashed those bottles anyway, or did they reuse them? I'm curious how that worked.
I think there's room for those types of systems. So anything that does sort of create an incentive for the bottles to be collected would help. Right now, that doesn't exist at all. You could also have the producer, the companies that are allowed to profit from the disposables, sort of pay into the system to ensure that collection. So that would be sort of a bare minimum. Those are some things that would sort of put a floor on the rapidly sinking recycling system. But down alone, that's not going to sort of overcome the problem if you have a continuous flood of new plastic coming onto the market.
Right, but because people aren't going to stop drinking soda. That's not going to happen. As much as we may think that's going to happen, it's not. We're not going to stop consuming what's in those plastic containers. So my thoughts and my question is, how do we, as consumers, get the things that we demand while still saving the planet or not making it any worse? I guess that would be the first step. And being able to not continue to pollute with what we're getting.
Right. Well, it is interesting too. Coca-Cola, they do have in Brazil, in fact, there is a higher rate of reuse. So they still use much of the Coca-Cola and other sodas that's sold is actually in returnable and refillable bottles. And it works there for a couple different reasons. It's sort of culturally normed. A lot of those bottlers are sort of generational family businesses. They've sort of, have a system that works. And so you could imagine, maybe that's different than here, very different place. You could also imagine, though, there are many places, if we were sort of on a smaller scale. Part of this is sort of reimagining our food systems, how things get to us, and that things might have to shift in scale a bit in order to sort of meet those sustainability goals, and really ensure that we can have a business. We could, Coca-Cola can have a business, and we can keep having soda, because otherwise we risk losing it all.
Right. Now, that's an excellent point you make, because in other countries, the people that I've talked to who live in other countries, they don't have the same kind of packaging that we have. I met a guy in Germany who says, when you get a toy from the store, you've got all kinds of, plastic that attaches it to this and to that and twist ties and stuff in a box. He said, we don't have that. In fact, we leave the stuff at the store usually and let them dispose of it properly. So their consumer products have much less into them than we do. And I think that's something that I don't know how we got to have all of this stuff, but maybe look at that.
Exactly. There is a lot of unnecessary packaging. So there's a lot of high impact areas where companies, if they made, strong decisions, they could eliminate a lot of it. Packaging is the largest end use segment of all the plastic produced. Close to 40% of it goes to plastic packaging. Most of that designed to be used in seconds. So, a lot of those things could just be eliminated, and then, perhaps, have less, much less plastic in the world. What if it was sort of a niche item reserved for things that are really necessary to have disposable?
Yeah, what do you think of a pollution tax? Like, if you're not going to recycle this stuff, you're going to pay higher for the packaging and maybe put a higher cost on plastics. Is that something that's I know nobody wants to hear that, but at some point there's got to be a disincentive to continuing this overuse and discarding of this stuff, right?
Right. So things like, yes, a polluter pays principle would sort of reverse the dynamics right now. As it currently stands, all of those costs are sort of externalized into the world, and then consumers end up paying for it, either end, particularly people that live near the plastic production plant and face higher rates of cancer, higher rates of asthma. And now that we know the relation between COVID and, health impacts, especially, so these costs are sort of already out there. It's just being borne by people and consumers, and also people all over the world who have to, are faced with the plastic being exported, for waste. So
sadly, yes, we're Americans, Ivy. We don't care about those people in other countries at all. And we don't even care about the people who live near the plastic plants because they're poor.
Yep. Yes. Many people did not know until a few years ago when China said they didn't want our plastic anymore. Many people had no idea up until that point that so much of it was exported to China, and many of us do. We think we throw it away and that's it. Yeah. I threw it away. So, now we're finding out that there is no way.
Now, last question I got for you. What do we do about this? Is there an action that you guys are putting out there, someone we should contact? Or should we open up the window, yell, something? What?
Yes. So, so we believe that the top polluting brands, they love to hear from their consumers. They know that plastic pollution is something people care about. So you can always give them a call. You can always email them and tell them your thoughts. They want to hear that the solutions are not just coming from Greenpeace, but that they are coming from people and that everyone cares. They are running scared. They will do more if they hear more.
There you go.
Yeah.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease. There you go. Ivy, I appreciate the time, the thoughts. Great stuff. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. This was great. Have a great night.
You as well. Thanks so much, Ivy Schlegel, research specialist there at Greenpeace. You want to check out their work, we'll get links out on how you can do that. Greenpeace.org, I believe, is their website. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1966. That was the day that the registered nurses of the Youngstown General Duty Nurses Association walked out of their jobs. Nursing could be a grueling profession, with long hours of physical labor for low pay. In Youngstown, the nurses were frustrated because there were inconsistencies in pay. Some recently hired nurses made more than those who had been working for years. Part-time nurses did not receive the same wage increases as full-time employees. They also did not feel that they had enough say in delivering quality care for their patients. When they asked to meet with the hospital's executive director to discuss their concerns, the nurses were rebuffed. They then contacted the Ohio Nurses Association union and asked for help. Youngstown was a steel town, a union town, and the nurses were ready to join in the local labor movement. At first, the Youngstown Hospital Association refused to bargain with the union. But when the nurses threatened to walk out, negotiations began. After 2 months of talking at the bargaining table, major issues remained unsettled, including pay and union recognition. Fed up, the nurses called for a mass resignation. 305 of the 433 nurses turned in their resignations. 2/3 of them were part-time nurses. They formed informational picket lines outside the hospitals. A federal mediator was brought in to settle the dispute. In the end, the nurses won significant gains. They received a more than 25% raise over 2 years. A grievance procedure was established for the first time, but most importantly, the union gained recognition and the right to bargain for better wages, hours, and conditions for the nurses and their patients. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you may remember back in March, Congress moved really quickly, and I give them credit. We were in the middle of a crisis. We needed the stimulus package to help the economy not completely tank, and they miraculously, and I shouldn't say that, in times of crisis they do come together, but in this day and age it seems like miraculously they came together in a very bipartisan fashion. 96-0 in the Senate, 419-6 in the House. They voted to move a stimulus package forward, and what they did is they made sure everybody got $1,200 a week, or $1,200 a week. What am I, crazy? They got $1,200, and you had Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, who said, hey, that's going to last at least 10 weeks. Not even he believed it would take almost 8 months for us to even to begin to talk about another stimulus package. And we desperately need it, because here at the end of December, a big portion of the extended unemployment goes away. And at the end of September, the money to help the airline industry completely dried up. And on October 1st, a bunch of airline workers were laid off and now struggling, which is why today across the country you had flight attendants and airline workers in Houston and Los Angeles and Chicago and cities across the country out protesting and demanding that Congress act to do something to help their industry and workers across the country. That's why I've asked Amanda Steinbrunn to come talk with us. She's a furloughed United flight attendant. She's also a member of the Association of Flight Attendants, AFA-CWA. Amanda, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me.
So your industry, the airline industry, got really a great package out of this, and I would argue it's because of the leadership of your union. In the stimulus package, they said, look, nobody gets laid off. Everyone stays on the payroll. Everyone gets their health care, and through the end of September. Not thinking that Congress would fail again and again and again to do anything, but this was pretty monumental, a workers first kind of package. And now it's sadly dried up. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you put it correctly. It's a fail after fail after fail. And it was something that kept us connected to our jobs, kept us connected to our healthcare in the middle of this huge pandemic. And we were really told, every single day, it's like whiplash. Oh, we're going to have something for you. We're going to have something for you. And the days started to dwindle down. Come October 1st, all those notices went out to us. I got a letter in the mail saying, you don't have a job anymore. No more income, no more health care. You're out in the world on your own in a place that has 17% unemployment going on. So every single day, it's just a letdown. We keep getting told over and over, there's so much support for this and so many people want to vote for it, and yet nothing is getting done.
It's really insane, isn't it? Especially if you go back and you remember those months. And I know you do, because you were one of those people who were out on the front lines. We were throwing that hero word around again like we do during times of crisis. All the frontline heroes, the people who went to work every day and exposed themselves and their families to this virus and to illness and to potentially death, only to now be just kind of thrown to the curb seems, well, I don't know, not what you do to heroes.
Yeah. And, we would never say ourselves are heroes, but at the same time, we were the frontline workers going out. In our cargo holds, we had ventilators, we had masks for hospitals. We were transporting around the Cleveland Clinic to help people in places like New York that was having horrible deaths and surges. And it is just a huge letdown. 1 in 14 jobs in this country is aviation. We're a huge backbone for the economy. There's no way the vaccine is going to get around the US, to all those people that need it, unless you have airplanes flying. And to have those flying, you need pilots, You need, ramp people loading up that cargo. You need flight attendants to fly those around. So if we just keep the aviation industry underneath, we're going to bottom out at the end of the year, and we might not see the vaccine production going as fast as it can when we could be helping people.
It just seems very short-sighted. But I understand you guys were out in the streets today, out in front of senators' offices in Chicago and Los Angeles and places across the country. What kind of response did you get in talking to people when you were out in the street?
We have a great response. Everybody really wants this to push forward, and that's the overwhelming thing is there's so much bipartisan, both sides of the aisle really want this to happen. This benefits all the people out there, not even just aviation. It'll help everybody go see their families, whatever they need. So everybody really supports it. We had a lot of news people coming out because we really want to just push, the message, because as it seems we've been forgotten, and we need to keep it in the forefront on the news every single day. We are not giving up, and it's not too late to help us. You need it to pass now. There will come a time, when it is too late. Rent was due today. People are already losing their homes, and you can't go back from that. So we're really pushing for it to be now, and everybody has huge support for this.
Yeah, and not only just your industry. I've been arguing for the kind of package that your union leadership was able to make sure Congress got for you guys. I was arguing we should be doing that for the entire economy. If you were, you should not be laid off and sent into the cold. You should be still. Other countries do this well. We just don't seem to do it because we don't have the political will. And I argue that the working class of this country wants it. They should demand it, and we should have a political system that at least moves us towards that. And I think there's an opportunity maybe in the next administration, not right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have huge hope come January. We have the union is really the big push. You said it exactly right. We wouldn't be here without our union. They're the reason we got this clean bill passed in the first place. It's not a bailout. It's not a handout. No money is going to executives. Nobody's getting huge bonus checks. Nobody's doing stock buybacks. It is literally going to my paycheck to make sure I have health care, and hundreds of thousands of other people that were laid off, or they don't even get as many hours anymore. You see Sarah Nelson out there every single day pushing for us. She's working 80-hour weeks. She's got a family at home. We would not be here without any of the unions in this country. And we're really hoping that they all come together and we can really push to have this go forward, because it's going to help everybody. We support, all the extra, unemployment benefits and all that stuff to help us all. So we really want all this to go through as soon as possible.
Now, I'm sure you've talked to your coworkers, and I'm sure there's struggle all across. I'm curious, Amanda, how is your family handling this? Because, this is something I'm sure nobody ever plans for. How are you handling it?
Yeah, you can't plan for it. And that's why, sadly, every day we're depleting our 401k we're saving for. We're having to take out second mortgages on the house. I know people that are using their kids' college tuition. I personally, I have to choose heat bill. Do I pay my rent? Do I feed myself 3 meals a day? Because you can't really do all of them at one point. So sadly, with even rent due today, a lot of people aren't able to pay it, and they're going to get evicted because there's no more protections like we had in that March bill. It ran out in September, so people are getting evicted today. And sadly, I could be very close. Like I said, you can't go back. Each day that passes is a day too late. So there's still time to help us, but for some, it's really hard right now. So even getting out there and getting a job, everybody that's out there right now trying to find a job knows how really hard it is. So, we're going to do as best as we can, and we're facing another holiday without a paycheck coming up,
And that's the worst part of this. I mean, this is kind of like a massive slap in the face. And look, at the end of the day, I blame Mitch McConnell for all of this because they could have passed another stimulus bill back in May. They could have done it in June, could have done it in July, could have done it in August or September or October. They could have done it in November, and they still have chosen not to. There's some talk now in December of possibly moving something, but I'm still not hopeful that that's going to pass.
Yeah, and crazy enough, just a couple weeks ago, he came out and said, by the end of the year, we're going to have a stimulus bill. He really wants to pass something. Today, they put out the rescue and relief bill on the Senate floor, and it was turned down almost immediately by him. And he came back with, no extra unemployment for people and so many things that aren't going to help us. So it's just another slap in the face today, another whiplash of us getting hopeful, and then all of a sudden it getting slammed down without, a future of helping us. So we're just hoping every single day that something will come up and they will realize real Americans are getting hurt, and they need to do something and put their pride aside, the politics aside, and they really need to help us.
Yeah, no, I was reading through what the plan that they put out that Mitch McConnell himself rejected, and in there again is McConnell's wish list item of employer immunity. The fact if the employer doesn't provide a safe workplace, you have no recourse against them. And talking to someone like you who has to deal with the public, has to deal with people who won't wear masks, has to deal with areas that you don't completely control. What do you think would happen if there was no responsibility by the employer to keep you safe and to get you the proper protection that you need? What do you think would happen in an industry like yours?
We're thankful it's not mandated in the country right now, as we know. So a lot of places aren't requiring masks. And thankfully, my employer has taken it into their hands to make sure that doesn't happen. So we are protected. We're actually really safe. The Department of Defense did a huge study. If I wear my mask and you wear your mask on an airplane with the filtration we have, it's actually safer than eating inside a restaurant. So we're very thankful that we're so protected. But if something like that went through where there is no liability protection, industries that aren't doing this and companies that aren't like looking out for their employers are not going to be held liable. Places that weren't smart, didn't tell their employees to wear masks and their patrons, they get sick, they die, their families get nothing in the middle of a pandemic. That's not something that can go forward. And it's really sad that people try and push that and look out for their buddies, that are CEOs and whatnot, that really just don't want to help us. They're looking out for their own bottom dollar.
No, and it's great to hear that your employer is one of them who is mandating. And my first thought was, is it because they wanted to do that, or because your union leadership demanded it and they negotiated over it, and that's where it came out. But sadly, too many workers don't have employers who are going to have their backs like that, and it's good to hear that someone does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good mix of the two. Is they really want their employees to be healthy, because we can't show up and fly if we're sick, so we want everybody to be healthy. And the union absolutely just advocates for us every single day to make sure we're safe. We don't have the vented masks on planes. Everybody has to wear the mask, and we're cutting down eating time so people don't have them off as much. So we're very lucky that they're looking out for us. So we're very lucky that the union on the other side is making sure that's upheld. And every single day, there's more regulations coming out to help us when we get new information.
Yeah, and now the important thing for folks to remember is the reason that personally, the reason I think you guys have done so well during this to this point is because the airline industry is like 80% unionized. Where virtually every worker in the industry has a voice on the job and some say in the conditions, which is why I think a big reason why I think you guys have gotten what you've gotten to this point. What we're having right now is not the company's fault. It is Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership in the Senate who haven't moved forward on this legislation. So let me ask you, because what they've put out today, wholly unacceptable to me on every level. And I know the argument, Rick, there are people out there who are struggling. Even the little bit that they're offering is better than nothing. And while I may agree with that, I can't let them off the hook. We have got to be pushing much harder to get a much more comprehensive, much better package without all of the sweetheart things that McConnell and other Republicans want. Like, for instance, and to me, one of the biggest slaps in the faces in the proposal that they put forth today, they want to go back to 100% deductions for businesses to go out to restaurants, 100% entertainment budget. Because they think somehow that's a good thing during a global pandemic at its height, which is insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, we really can't, say anything, because we want everybody to have a job right now, and it's hard all around. We just have to kind of bring together everybody in all the industries, because anything that passes will help the restaurants out there. And he keeps trying to cut down this PPP that helps the small businesses with their payroll protection so they can stay closed and safe at the same time. So he just keeps cutting it down all over, making it really hard for these small places, all these servers and workers in the restaurant industry. So, I mean, I agree, all the things that were put forward were completely unacceptable. And it's very sad that he's gambling with lives and livelihoods like this, and thinks it's okay to come back with, no responsibility to the companies, no extra unemployment, no rent moratorium, anything like that.
So what should we be doing? I mean, clearly today's proposal unacceptable. What should folks be doing? What's the marching order?
Yeah, every single day, even just getting tweets out there, tweeting your senators, your representatives is huge. Flooding their phone lines is what they have told us is the most beneficial to them, because it lets them know their constituents really support this. So calling your representatives and both your senators every single day saying, I'm a constituent, I support airline relief, I support COVID relief, rent relief. I need you to support that on the floor when it comes up and push for it really hard. Talk is cheap and action is really what's going to help Americans out there. So doing that every single day helps us. It helps everybody out there that's struggling by pushing it forward to your elected representatives to really have them support this.
Early, often, call twice a day, sit down, write out a letter, send it via the mail. All of those points of contact are a good thing. Amanda, I appreciate the time. I wish you guys nothing but the best. I hope that you'll come back and share some thoughts on this as it continues down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, pushing our agenda forward, Rick.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate it. Amanda Steinbrunn, she's a furloughed United flight attendant, member of the Association of Flight Attendants, AFA-CWA. Look, this goes back to what we've been talking about for quite some time. And that is, look, at the end of this, Mitch McConnell is responsible for nothing getting done. And I've been talking about this for quite some time, for a while. If we do not hold them accountable, if we do not contact them early and often, if we don't do the things that need to be done, nothing's going to get done. And folks like Amanda and her coworkers and all those people that we called frontline heroes and all of those people that we put up on the pedestal, they're going to continue to struggle. And the fact that, in this day and age, in the wealthiest country in the world, at its wealthiest moment in time, we're letting people go hungry. We're making people choose between paying their rent and buying food, or food and medicine. We can do better. But this comes down to pure politics. And as I said, the other day, the sad reality is this, again, all comes to Mitch McConnell. And I truly believe that had Mitch McConnell passed something in May, like the Democrats did, in June, in July, August, September, even October, had they passed something before the election, Donald Trump would have been reelected, without question. Because they'd have gotten something with his giant name written on it. He could even put a picture of himself on it. And do you think, with as close as the elections would have been, do you think that would have put him over the top? Because I do. And this, again, is one of those frustrating moments where one guy is responsible for harming potentially millions. We've got 7 million more people in poverty because of this pandemic and the fact that they have done nothing to help them. And like I said, Steve Mnuchin thought $1,200 was going to last 10 weeks. I don't know in what alternative universe he thought that was going to happen, but it's crazy. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1955. That was the day that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. With that action, she helped to launch the civil rights movement in the United States. Rosa Parks is often portrayed as simply a weary woman, tired from a long day of work as a seamstress. While that was true, she was also a member of the NAACP, who had been trained in race relations at the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee. Her refusal to give up her seat was a political act. When she was arrested, E.D. Nixon looked into what happened. Nixon was a leader of his union, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. He called the police department to inquire about Parks, only to be told it was none of your damn business. He found a lawyer and posted her bail. Leaders in the black community decided to declare a bus boycott for the following Monday. They called themselves the Montgomery Improvement Association. The first day of the boycott was a rounding success, but many wanted to end the action. At a meeting of the Montgomery Improvement Association, Nixon gave an impassioned speech where he said, "What's the matter with you people? We have been living off the sweat of these washermen all of these years, and you have never done anything for them. Now you can have a chance to pay them back. And you're too damn scared to stand on your feet and be counted." They decided to continue the boycott. In order to keep it going, organizers established a private taxi service to ensure that black residents could get to and from work. For more than a year, they kept up the boycott until they won their fight for desegregation. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Here are some of the big public policies people clearly want, but lawmakers consistently ignore. Paid family leave time. Restrict the power of big money in our elections. Stop rent gouging by greedy corporate landlords. And assert real public oversight to stop police abuses. Now, the good news. In various states, we can vote directly for such policies that have been proposed as ballot initiatives. It's do-it-yourself democracy in action. Of course, bypassing the backroom chicanery of legislative bodies doesn't necessarily bypass the insider power of big money. But at least ballot initiatives force moneyed interests to do their avaricious dirty work outside, allowing us commoners to glimpse their greed. That's certainly the case of a money-soaked mega fight underway in California over Proposition 22, an abominable attempt by Uber, Lyft, and other multi-billion-dollar behemoths in the gig economy to stiff their own workers. These outfits have amassed their billions by claiming that each of their thousands of workers are independent contractors, not employees. Therefore, say the corporations, they don't have to provide health care or comply with basic labor protections. This year, though, a new California law rejected this blatant corporate ruse, at last allowing employees to get the essential benefits due to them. But a cabal of these giants has ponied up more than $200 million to pass Prop 22, exempting them from doing right by the people who do their work, 8 out of 10 of whom are people of color. If you wonder why our fabulously rich nation keeps sinking deeper into self-destructive inequality, look no further than Prop 22, one of the most underhanded PR campaigns in the history of ballot initiatives. This is Jim Hightower saying, for more information, go to Gig Workers Rising, gigworkersrising.org.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the Trump team, their lawyers, filed another lawsuit today in Wisconsin. They want to disqualify more than 221,000 ballots, and at least here, Wisconsin's an actual place. Unlike Edison County, Michigan, that doesn't exist, that they claim there was a bunch of voter fraud in. At least this does exist, even if there is nothing there, and even Billy Barr himself said there's nothing there. But like I said from the beginning, this is all about the money. It's about fundraising. It's about there's no chance of overturning it. Save your money. I'm here to share some thoughts on the lawsuits. On maybe how we get to go forward. I've asked our good friend Scott Dworkin to come back. Scott is the co-founder of the Democratic Coalition, also host of the fabulous Dworkin Report. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me on, Rick. I appreciate it.
So another lawsuit, and look, they're filing lawsuits like they're going out of style. I don't know whether they're getting all this money. Well, actually, I do. A bunch of stupid people are giving them money so that they can continually file losing, frivolous lawsuits. Or as the one guy said, tweets with fees. And losing again and again and again.
I can handle all of this winning. I think that one thing that we learned on election night was that it's not over until he's sworn in, and at least this phase of things. And I knew that. We always planned ahead for that, but we didn't expect him to actually follow through with this.
Really? You didn't expect him to go this way? Because I believed he was planning this in 2016 because for me, this isn't about overturning the election. This is about raking in a huge amount of cash. And if you look at the Washington Post and the New York Times, they're both reporting somewhere between 150 and 170 million dollars have come into his coffers because of this stop the steal nonsense.
Right, and they should know that they get audited automatically. So I good luck to them and the Federal Elections Commission, because they are not someone who plays nice. They play by the book with everything. They're not lenient on, and they shouldn't be, because there's very little room. For example, like we just finished a $50,000 buy in Georgia for the Senate race for our ads down there, and we had to report our most recent buy of $15,000 today for Warnock and $15,000 for Ossoff. And if we don't do that within 48 hours, you can be fined. And then after that, you're subject to, felonies and imprisonment, like all that stuff. But I find it interesting that they'd open themselves up. They must be desperate for cash. Now with this kind of cash, he can use it for pretty much anything, and it's in the fine print.
Yep.
But he's still sending out emails that are fraudulent, that say this is going to be used for that. So there's a mixed bag. There probably will be a lawsuit like Trump University. There will be a settlement, blah, 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 blah. Same thing, that's always happened. But that is that you can tell now the whole strategy behind it was never to actually win anything, because I'm sure that his legal team told him it's not going to happen. No legislature is going to step out and do this for you. No one's going to do this. It's just not going to happen.
Do you think the whole legal team told him that? Because I had Rudy Giuliani here in Pennsylvania the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and Rudy, was doing his full damned hearty best to get the guy who wants to be governor to set aside the votes and lead the charge to undo the millions of votes here in Pennsylvania. They had the whole dog and pony show, the whole maskless dog and pony show, only to have Doug Mastriano, the guy who wants to be governor, go to the White House and be found to have COVID. But hey, that's a whole nother story.
We're investigating him, by the way. We're investigating Senator Mastriano. We've already found discrepancies from his congressional race in 2018, I believe. He really likes to reimburse himself, and he really shouldn't have the same number over and over again for those reimbursements. That's one of the things. But we'll be revealing that investigation. When you step into the spotlight, it does not mean all positive things. When you're doing it like this, when you're trying to undermine our democracy and throw a coup via our election, then you're going to be investigated upside down in circle. And when I start hitting the investigation trail again, which has been a while, I'm a little rusty at shake it off, but I love it. So he's got a very dark past, and it's not pretty. And so I look forward to exposing that. I'm not like James O'Keefe. I actually have evidence. I bring receipts, and I don't talk in riddles and things like that. I think we've got a long road with a lot of these folks. Now, when I was saying legal team, just to clarify, I'm talking about his White House counsel. I'm not talking about the clown, I guess it'd be like a clown car train wreck rolling through a dumpster fire.
Throwing a temper tantrum, yes.
Right. In like a toilet in a rest stop bathroom, maybe in the middle of Pittsburgh somewhere.
Yeah, in a porta potty somewhere, in a dump.
At one of the games. Go Browns. And I will say it's not a legal team. None of them should be able to practice law ever again. It's what they're doing is beyond criminal, and it is voter fraud. What they're doing, it's fraud surrounding the election. It's lying about things that are going on. They're talking in broad strokes, but I can just, like, a lot of these hearings, these fake PR stunts that they're pulling where they're trying to use the government. There's a lot of intermingling between, federal election, state elections, campaigns versus legislative.
Yep.
And so there will be people who go to prison over this.
I hope so, because they had that whole dog and pony show here in Gettysburg, where a bunch of state senators showed up. The Senate Majority Leader was there. You had a whole bunch of them, maskless, of course, and nobody under oath. And it's one of those things you're going, if you're going to have a hearing, why aren't these people under oath who are throwing out these, oh, I saw this and I'm an expert? No, you're not. You're saying, you're throwing out a bunch of opinion. There's no fact. If you had actual evidence, you'd be presenting this in a court of law.
Right. And Trump didn't even show up once he found out that it could be considered an illegal conspiracy to undermine the United States.
Well, he did come in on the phone. They did let him phone in to the hearing. The woman literally held the phone up to the microphone.
His lawyer, so that his conversation, I understand what he did there. He talked via his lawyer. And so if anyone's to blame for that conversation, he can kind of pin it on her because she held it up to the microphone. Obviously, that was against the legal team's wishes. Everything he's done has been against, the legal team's wishes. I think what the funniest or saddest or most ridiculous thing about this is there's going to be Trump crimes that come out immediately the second he's sworn in. Like, we're going to find out things that we wish we never knew. And it's going to be the worst of everything. Not only that, we're going to expose the Mueller report. We're going to be able to find out, about different prosecutions that were on the table. We're going to be able to find out more about this bribes for pardons scheme, another quid pro quo. I can't even say the word. I'm so sick of saying it. Another scheme from Trump of bribery and extortion or whatever it leads to. And then you have pardons, I guess they're considering for the kids. I can tell you this. If you want to go ahead and pardon them for crimes they committed, if they committed crimes, they're going to get prosecuted for them. No one's getting a free ride. It's not going to happen. People can say, well, we don't have the power in the state. You watch. Public sentiment is everything when it comes to this. Outside of the fact, if you have evidence or it's been presented in public view where it's just glaringly obvious somebody committed a crime, there's going to be people in the White House, and I've said this so many times, I guess people probably be sick of it. People are going to prison for crimes. These are crimes that have been committed. Anyway, so when we start anew, I think it's going to be a reckoning, and it's not going to involve Biden at all. It's all going to involve his attorney general.
Right. No, that's always been the case. But let me ask you this, because there's talk of a lot of broad stroke pardons. The kids, obviously, Ivanka, Dumb Jr., and Eric, and of course Kush, because Kushner's, to me, he's the ringleader of the whole crime syndicate. Sure. Can you do broad brush immunity for them by pardoning them without an allocution of saying these are the crimes that we've committed? Can you just say blanket immunity for them to never be prosecuted of federal crimes? Is that something that's possible?
I mean, he can try and do it, and I'm guessing he will try and do it. But at the same time, you're making it easier to overturn when the crimes that were going on during these pardons being given out could be potentially thrown out. And I think that's what will happen is there will be a lot of things that retroactively will have to be thrown out. And it could be appointments or, I'm sure that there's bribe schemes going on with judges, not necessarily the Supreme Court, but definitely with some. We still don't know what exactly went on with Justice Kennedy and this link to Deutsche Bank. I mean, it's all just very shady. And I can just say that the truth will come out on all of this. And I think at the end of the day, when people learn about these atrocities that Trump's committed, on top of the fact that when Biden takes the helm and the numbers go down for the Trump virus, when the numbers go down, I think it's going to be really, it's going to be that Nixon drop of people where 90% of the country does not like him anymore at any level. And they realize, oh, if we had only done more, if we had only worn a mask, because the smoke's going to clear, the election's going to be gone. and you're going to have 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, a million people dead. And that domino effect on our economy and everything else, the way we live, will hurt us for our entire life. And so what we can do now is to try and make our lives better for our kids and grandkids. And I think that when we get through this, that we will not see another Donald Trump in our lifetimes. And that'll be the positive that comes out of it. But the negative, obviously, is it had to lead to this, basically mass murder of his own people so that he could have political gain and have them under the guise of a cult leader with a stamp, the presidential seal. And it's just, people will be held accountable. I don't know. That's the craziest thing is I don't know where they think that they can get off of the people who have died because of their actions, directly due to their actions. They will be held legally accountable.
Do you really believe that, though, Scott? I mean, because there's part of me that goes, I want to believe you with all my heart and soul.
Sure.
I want to believe that we're going to finally hold somebody accountable. But look, we didn't hold anybody accountable for all the lies that got us into Iraq. We didn't hold anybody accountable for that. And we didn't hold anybody really accountable for collapsing our economy. We didn't hold Nixon accountable. We just don't do that. And my fear is Joe Biden wants to get back to so much normal, wants to calm things down, do the reach across the aisle thing, that I fear that he lets it go. Let sleeping dogs lie.
Nah, he's not cool with that. I think he knows that corruption needs to be cleaned up in order for us to have a path forward, in order to make sure that it never happens again. And he's going to work on that.
I hope you're right.
He's got to be careful about how it's presented. He's got to have all the facts. He's got to be able to present evidence and be clear as day. We've got to be able to ban propaganda outlets. We've got to be able to ban fake news. We've got to be able to regulate social media networks so that they can't post this content anymore. They can't spread these falsehoods and lies to give validity to them. There's a lot of things that will be done very quickly. It will be swift.
Yeah, but here's my problem with that. Look, I'm uncomfortable with who gets to decide what is and what isn't worthy of being said or put forth. I'm a little uncomfortable with the whole censorship argument. Now, look, I do agree something has to be done, but I'm a little uncomfortable with saying we're gonna be banning certain things and doing stuff like that, because you only are gonna create another underground. I'm just uncomfortable with it.
Sure, it's better than the Wizard of Oz thing that they've got going on right now, where it's just like, we meet with them. I was meeting with a group that was led by Speaker Pelosi's office about breaking up big tech, and we met with Facebook in person. And I believe a few days later, our account for the Democratic Coalition, which has almost 500,000 members, was suspended or kind of blocked, and it was known as a block. And they did that for months and months based off of nothing. And then not only that, they acted like it was kind of like they didn't know what to, like, we're working on it, when it's just a press of a button. So I think that there's a lot more sinister things that have gone on there. And so we need a more transparent body. It cannot be this Wizard of Oz with both sides where they decide what gets banned and what doesn't. I'm not sure exactly what will be the qualifier for it, but we do have to have referees. Maybe we have a legal advisement board where they determine what's real and what's not, or what's a trusted provider and what's not a trusted provider, who can send out links and not, because there's that. But then you and I want to be able to post stuff if it's from our own website or whatever, and spread our truth. So it is a fine line. But I think right now it's the Wild West, and we need to put a stop to it. So I'm all for free speech, obviously, I'm one of the loudest dudes out. But
No,
like,
I'm right there with you. But at some point, doesn't it come back to us? And this is where I believe nothing I see on the internet.
right.
Honestly, I look for trusted organizations, and they're usually AP, UPI. They're usually major news outlets. I look at Fox and I look at CNN, and I look at them for the balance of each side. I don't look at Joe's website and conspiracy .org or little green bubbles or whatever the hell else they come up with. Who throw out just some of the worst poorly written stuff out there. But doesn't it come back to us?
Yeah, it always comes back to us. But right now, I think we're in a trauma position, and I think it's going to kill people if we don't get a handle of the COVID disinformation campaign that's going to happen when he leaves office. I would expect an attack on the United States by foreign adversaries, by Trump allies. They're going to want to try and make Biden look as bad as possible, and try and organize rallies and all this other nonsense. And again, I don't think that any of this is gonna matter. The stark reality of there being a 9/11 every single day, people are gonna want their Bin Laden. People are gonna want. This is more of a situation of like 9/11, less than Iraq or Afghanistan. We're talking about innocent American civilians that have been killed because of the lack of leadership, not just in Washington, but across the board. And it is sadly, a majority of it has come from one political party. And their actions, what they've said, what they've done, what they haven't done, their negligence and everything has added up to clear people getting killed and people getting sick. And we can scientifically and through lawyers connect those dots directly to Trump and his actions and also his negligence. And I do believe, as I believed in the Russia scandal, that people are going to go to prison. That this is beyond that. I remember I used to say there's nothing that can beat this. Well, I mean, just with PPP money, we're talking about them stealing billions of dollars from taxpayers and companies that needed it. The investigations are already ongoing. There's already dozens of investigations that have spurred from the coronavirus investigatory body in Congress. They also have an anti-corruption task force that they've launched, and that will be investigating all of Trump's corruption in Congress. And now with a White House and potentially a Senate and a House, I mean, if we have the gambit, then we will be able to uncover everything, and everything will be exposed. Because I'll just say this, there's not going to be many Democrats who want to stand up against the resistance, because we speak truth and we speak power, and we're louder than we've ever been. We're more organized than we've ever been. People still can't get a grasp on who we are or what we do or what branch of the party we are, when in reality, we're just Americans that were sick of it, that believe in equality and fighting for freedom and truth. And so it's very basic where we need to get back to where we were, before, where we were building into a better world in 2016. But I think the good news is, based on all this, imagine what the Republican Party is going to look like without Trump, and how other people are going to take the spotlight. It is not going to be fun for them. And they deserve every minute of that.
Yeah, I see. I'm with you on that. But the sad reality is I look at the last election, and they didn't get the beating they deserved. And
didn't they though?
Well, they didn't lose the Senate.
Well, we wanted to keep the House. We did that. We wanted to win the Senate. We still can. And we won the White House handily, enough where he can't legitimately challenge anything, and Republicans can't wave papers around. So we accomplished our goals in a COVID environment. On top of that, do I think that we were going to win all these? I wanted to. I wanted to win those other Senate races, but at some point we were spread too thin, and we needed to focus on our priority was the White House. The second priority in there was the Senate. I think we will win the Senate. I think it'll be 50-50. I think that we will get stuff accomplished. I think that it'll need to be, we'll have a middle ground because Manchin will try and use his power to kind of curtail to more, or that'll be the excuse that they use. But these are not the people that President-elect Biden is hiring. These are progressives. These are not, maybe there's Yellen and so, but like his communication staff, the people that are beneath him and his administration, people who are coming on like Neera Tanden, these are not people who get pushed around. These are not people who are afraid of a fight. And these are not people who are frauds. And none of them, not one, have legitimate business ties to Russia or anything like that. Like maybe they've been pictured with Putin in the background while, Obama's staring him down. But they've never done business with Putin's associate or whatever. Like all that is never going to happen. And if it did, they'd be fired instantly. So this is it's going to be, I don't know how to put it, cataclysmic in a positive way. The earth will rumble, I guess, on January 20th, where you feel the difference, and it is immediate. As in the tenor and the tone and how we activate ourselves and how people take Trump virus seriously. And that is, he's earned that title. We'll call it maybe the Obama Biden vaccine and the Trump virus. And that's what he's won over. And I truly believe that it's happening right now, where people will realize the reality that we're in, the smoke will clear, and we'll realize, I can't believe that we let this happen to ourselves. And people will want people to blame, and they will be blamed, and they will not politically survive it. And I don't believe they should. It will be justice, and there's no way around it, because that's where the road leads. It's where it always leads in America when it comes to this, because people, again, this is a 9/11 situation, but we're talking about more Americans getting hurt, and we're talking about our own people hurting us.
Yeah, I like the world that you're putting forth better than the one that I believe sadly is going to happen. I fear Trump doesn't go away. He starts something like Trump TV. Gets millions of people to give him money every month, and he's louder and more obnoxious than he's ever been. And the networks and cable news, pander to him because he is the golden goose. He's what brings in the ratings. I think Les Moonves was the guy who said it best. You may not like him, but we're making tons of money off of him. I fear that is what continues to dominate what's in front of us. And the pain and the suffering continue, and the insanity continues.
We have no problem waging a boycott of people on MSNBC, CNN, and we will boycott your show forever if you air Trump after the election, unless it's about his indictment. If you some people, Trump supporters, people who are full of lies and hate, not going to happen anymore. We have to accept it now because he's still in the White House. We still push up against it. But we have that fine line of like, okay, well, I guess they have to have one guy on there that's crazy or whatever. We fight with it. We push back against it. When President-elect Biden takes the helm, we're going to have a zero tolerance with that nonsense. And if you're part of creating this false narrative, we'll push you off TV. We won't. I don't have zero qualms. I don't care if I know you. I don't care if you're an anchor on MSNBC, and I'm not saying anybody specifically, because people like Joy Maddow and Chris Hayes and Brian, like they're not going in that route. But like if Chuck Todd wants to have one of these goons on there, then we'll have to confront that head on. And guess what? Without this clown out dancing in front of the Republican Party trying to distract, we will have our whole focus on that one thing. We are I would say, the strongest political movement in American history, and we are going to prove that over the next 4 years. And
let's hope so. Last question I've got for you. I don't know if you saw this statement by one of Trump's campaign lawyers, this Joe DiGenova, who evidently thought on Newsmax it was a safe space for him to say that he thinks that former CISA director Chris Krebs should basically be taken out and shot. because he didn't support Donald Trump and saying that there was all this fraud. I'm curious. I'm a lot uncomfortable with this. In fact, this is one of those things that I think there should be. If you are in this kind of position of power, there should be some kind of criminal charge brought with this, because this is inciting some kind of violence, in my view. I'm curious yours.
I think that would happen if there's a DOJ that believes in justice and laws. And also, if there, I think it's a little bit, again, it's hard for people to justify a prosecution of someone who's right beneath the president of the United States. And I think they have these excuses that they build up in their heads, because I do believe what he did was illegal. I do believe that he threatened a former U.S. official in their capacity as being a U.S. official. Not only that, but nonpartisan in elections realm. On top of that, Digenova is going to be very lucky if Krebs doesn't own his house when he's done with them. And so all of these people, it's absolutely insane for you to threaten this, because it does become reality. And as you saw, it gets worse. In the Secretary of State's office, the Georgia guy from the Republican Party said today, it's got to stop. It's got to end immediately. People are going to get hurt. People are going to get killed.
Yeah, sad stuff. Scott, I appreciate the time and the thoughts. As this continues, I'd love to have you back as we continue down the road. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Good stuff. Our good friend, Scott Dworkin, co-founder of the Democratic Coalition, also host of the Fabulous Dworkin Report. Make sure you check out his podcast where all podcasts are found. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
The Army Corps of Engineers has denied a permit to the Pebble Mine, a controversial project in a remote part of Alaska that could have contaminated the world's largest salmon fishery.
Trump administration denies controversial Pebble Mine in Alaska.
Good.
But Trump EPA also lets polluting industries off the hook for toxic waste, while his Interior Department finalizes bird-killing rule.
Not as good.
Plus, Bank of America ditches fossil fuel projects in the fragile Arctic.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Trump thinks that if he sells off enough of America, there won't be anything left for Joe Biden to be president of. Here's the key, Joe. You've got the White House, you've got this sidewalk, and everything else belongs to Exxon.
Oh, like it doesn't already. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Donald Trump did something good, did one thing good before leaving office, nixing the Pebble Mine up in Alaska.
Know. It's a pretty big deal.
Yes, it is.
But we'll have more on that in a moment.
I look forward to it.
First, in Australia, an early spring heat wave down under is an ominous warning of the upcoming bushfire season in the wake of last year's record deadly bushfires intensified by record-breaking heat waves. Over the weekend, parts of Australia, including Sydney, sweltered through the hottest November night ever recorded, with daytime records in New South Wales hitting 115 degrees in spring. It's also the official end of the historic 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, which delivered a record-shattering 30 named tropical storms, forcing forecasters to dig into the Greek alphabet for storm names after running out of English names, all of it fueled by extremely warm ocean waters caused by man-made climate change.
Does the climate know that the hurricane season is over?
No, it does not. More storms could still form, so nobody should relax just yet.
Oh, thank God.
The Trump administration is is racing to finish rollbacks of key environmental protections before they get shoved out the door, like finalizing the weakening of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act so that companies will no longer be held accountable for causing accidental deaths to migratory birds. The Fish and Wildlife Service admits that companies will be less likely to take steps to prevent harm to birds if they face no legal liability for it. That will lead to more bird deaths. The rule primarily benefits the oil industry, which kills exponentially more birds than wind farms.
Remember when Donald Trump would go out to all his rallies and pretend to be all sad about birds that were killed by wind farms?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cute.
The public has only 30 days to comment on this rule.
I'm against it.
At regulations.gov.
Oh.
And the Trump Environmental Protection Agency says it will no longer require oil and gas, coal, chemical, and mining companies to purchase insurance to cover their major spills and accidents. Critics say the finalized rule will add to the growing list of toxic Superfund sites, forcing taxpayers to foot the bill for cleanup, and that it also poses the greatest risk to communities of color and low-income communities that are most likely to live next to polluting industries.
How hard will it be for the Biden administration to turn back finalized rules?
Finalized rules can take a very long time to turn back, but that's unless Democrats win control of the U.S. Senate in the 2 Georgia runoff elections on January 5th, under a law that allows Congress to repeal last-minute administration rules.
But they would have to have the majority in both the House and Senate to be able to do that.
Yes, that's correct.
You hear that, Georgia?
Some good news. On Monday, Bank of America announced it will stop providing project financing for oil and gas exploration in the fragile Arctic as well. With B of A's announcement, all of the big 6 banks in the United States have now all ruled out funding for drilling in the Arctic. But the bad news is the Trump administration has proposed a new rule that would force banks to finance fossil fuel projects.
Yeah, good luck with that. They're in there for another 50 days. They do not have time to finalize any such rules like that.
The rule would literally bar financial institutions from refusing to lend to the fossil fuel industry.
Whatever. Goodbye.
The Hill reports that Trump's new proposal is divisive among conservatives because it pits advocates for fossil fuels at any cost against so-called free market advocates who call it government overreach to tell banks where to invest.
Oh, now they're concerned about government overreach.
Finally, there is one really good thing that Trump has done on his way out. After a 15-year contentious battle with Native American tribes and conservation organizations, the Army Corps of Engineers denied a crucial permit for Alaska's controversial Pebble Mine, calling it, quote, contrary to the public interest under the Clean Water Act. The massive proposed gold and copper mine would have decimated one of the world's most prolific wild salmon fisheries in Bristol Bay, Alaska, which brings in billions in revenue. The denial follows recent opposition from Donald Trump Jr. and other key conservatives who pressed Trump to reject it.
Good. We'll take it. Thank you, Donald Trump. Now beat it. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, CDC panel voted by a 13-1 decision who will be at the front of the line when we start doling out the vaccines. And I think rightly so, they decided that the frontline healthcare workers, the people who are being overwhelmed right now, that they should be first in line along with the folks who are the most vulnerable, those folks living in long-term care facilities in our nursing homes. That seems sane. That seems rational. I would argue that the next line of people who should get it are the grocery store workers, the fast food workers, all of those people that we were calling frontline heroes. They should be next in line. Sorry, rich guy who can choose to stay home and to socially distance. You're last, or maybe politicians, you're last. No, I think I'm going with the rich guy last. But politicians, especially the Republicans, or anybody who's tweeted out that it was a hoax, that wearing a mask was stupid. Any Karen who's on videotape in a gym complaining that she shouldn't have to wear a mask because she's got some weird ailment, you're last. But everybody who was trying to get through this and do the right thing, we should be getting to them first. And my other question is, who's the one guy who said, "Nah, I don't think those healthcare workers and the seniors should get it"? I'd like to know who the one guy is. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, well, the CDC's announcement and where we are with the virus at this point. I've asked our medical expert, Dr. Kelly Senholtz, to come talk with us. Dr. Senholtz, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not sick. That's a good start. But 13-1, who the hell is this one guy?
Oh my God, I don't know. That's hilarious. That is a very good question. The thing is, I think it's pretty intuitive. I think that healthcare workers are obviously going to be first. And then we're talking about nursing home patients, people with disabilities or medical issues, frontline workers. It's going to take months for us to get to the general population.
As it should. I mean, the reality is we get it as fast as we can, but it's those people who are the most vulnerable, the people who are most impacted by it. We get them first. That makes common sense. Something we used to understand in this country.
Yes, the character of our nation has been challenged, and we have fallen greatly short.
But here's the thing. I happened to catch this thread. This Dr. Nichols wrote this very long thread that I hope everybody reads. I tweeted it out. I hope everyone takes a look at it. Where he's talking about, in comes this older guy with the Nazi tattoos and the swastikas and all this stuff. And he says, here's a Jewish doctor, an African-American nurse, an Asian respiratory therapist saving this guy's life. And this guy was one of it's all a hoax. It's all, I'm not wearing my stinking mask. He's there because of his own stupidity. And yet, they said, look, we're doing the best we can. We're gonna help do what we can to save you in the face of all of this stuff. And to me, it's just another one of those moments where I give such credit to doctors and the people who on the front lines who put aside their own interests, their own safety, to help even the idiots among us.
Dr. Nichols wrote a really poignant post, and I hope everybody has a chance to see it. But the fact is, that's what we do. We're self-selected people who want to help everybody. That's our job. I remember years ago, I had to do hair sampling on what turned out to be a serial rapist murderer. And he was the most charming man, very handsome. I thought, wow, if I met him on the street, I would have just thought he was amazing. So everybody that comes to the emergency department gets treated the same. We treat everybody well. And this has been really frustrating. I got to tell you, in the last few days, I have felt an extreme, I don't know what to call it, bitterness, anger, frustration coming out of nurses and doctors.
Yep.
That I've never heard before. Everybody is very frustrated at the general public for not being able to just for a short period of time change your life a little bit to save lives. They're exhausted. They're tired. They're hungry. They miss their families. Many people are still living in their garages or their trailers. This has been abysmal, and they're falling. I mean, some of them just are quitting. They can't do it anymore.
And hasn't that been the fear all along? Because look, I understand, and I've had people tell me, well, 98% of the people are going to be just fine. They'll get past it. It won't be a big deal. And I argue back, well, it's not so much about that. It's about overtaxing our systems, and it was always about flattening the curve and not blowing away our hospitals and our healthcare facilities. And I don't know where you live, but I'm not seeing the kind of the kind of stories and the kind of attention that we got back in March and April over what I would argue is much worse now than was back then.
It's much worse. It's much worse. But here's a couple of stats. So the dead so far, we have 1 out of every approximately 1,100 people in the United States are dead. That number is unbelievably high. But most experts are saying we're going to about double. When you do the numbers, it comes out to about 1 in every 650 people in the United States will die of this. But we're going to have 5 times that many people who are long-term disability patients because of COVID. People with devastating neurological problems, strokes, heart attacks, just the myriad of bizarre symptoms that are coming out of this. I read something interesting. There are some historians that feel Hitler's rise was partially due to the large number of disabled people after the pandemic in 1918. He did attack the disabled and infirmed as one of his groups that he struck out at. And we're going to be living with the cost and the burden of a massive number of disabled people, but you cannot get the population to believe this when the leader of the free world is spouting bizarre things at the golf course.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. And you also have his team running around the country claiming there was all this, voter fraud and all this theft that went on, and that sucks all the oxygen and the attention out of the room to where we're not talking about the number of people are dying every day, and the numbers are double what they were back in April and May. I mean, we're much worse, and they're going to get even worse as we move into December and January.
Dr. Michael Osterholm is a newly appointed COVID-19 advisor for President Biden. He said, we are about to enter COVID hell. And, I was thinking about what it's going to look like when Biden takes office. Like, how are we going to fight this continuing insanity? But I have a feeling we're about to go through 2 months of such massive death and the economic devastation that it's going to be hard for anybody to not remember it, to not have it imprinted on their soul as to this is what happened.
Yeah, and for me, I look at Twitter every day, and there's a story, another nurse, or on Facebook, another nurse has come forward and said, this is what I'm seeing. This is how horrible it is. And begging people, please, please, please do the right things. And I don't know where you live, at the end of it, I look at my backyard and it doesn't seem like, it's business as usual. In fact, they closed our schools down, completely. Because you had teachers and people you would think would know better going out of state. It's insane.
It's I have no idea why the airlines are not shut down. I don't understand why we're allowing people to travel around like we are. This is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I have people that are telling me, they're planning a vacation and this and that. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's almost as if we live in 2 different realities.
Yeah, but what do you say to the person, Dr. Sennholz, who goes, we're just gonna have to bowl through this. It's already too late. Because I've had this argument thrown at me. There's nothing we can do now. It's already too late. We've just got to work through it. Hope the vaccine gets to us quick enough. Hope we have the therapeutics to take care of us when we get sick. But ultimately, as a country, we're just going to have to, like bulls in the china shop, beeline right for the exit.
So we have about, we've got less than a couple of weeks till vaccinations are beginning. It will 5, 6, 7 months. I don't know how long, but we've got, if we can just hang on, if we could shut down now for just 2 weeks and get a grip on it, and then take a especially cautious approach to the next few months, we could save a couple of 100,000 lives and 1 million people from disability. We could save billions and billions of dollars and come out the other side stronger if we had leadership.
Yeah, but we don't. So nothing's going to happen until January 20th. No, I mean, look, I would love to go into the fantasy world of Donald Trump is going to have a great epiphany. The three ghosts are going to come to him in his sleep, and and wake him up, and the future ghost is going to lay out all this horrible stuff, and he's going to care. That's not going to happen. So we've got to make it to January 20th, and then it's going to be raging completely out of control. And then what can a President Biden do when it's already completely out of control? And as I've been told, the numbers are going to be upwards of 3,000 people a day dying each and every day for his first 100 days.
So he's going to have to just start again, like as if it was the first day of the crisis. Explain to people what it is, what went wrong, what the damage has been, and how we can prevent it. Right now, Australia has had, I think, 20 or 30 days with no cases. They have full sports events. They have shopping. They have social events. They have, a team of health experts that jump on anything that looks like a case to make sure they stop it in its tracks. So basically, they've totally controlled COVID by simply having good leadership.
Right.
In our case, we're going to have economic devastation for decades from what is being done this month. Somebody has to get that message across.
No, and the sad thing is, and the reason that I'm so grateful that you come on and share this with us, is that all of the oxygen is being sucked out of the room because we're focused on all of the lawsuits that Trump's losing all across the country.
Yes, absolutely. He's a master at stealing attention, but the press is complicit. But when I flip on the news, I see shows about the virus, but it's almost like it's become a little hum in the back. Everybody, they just can't take it anymore. There's no. If somebody had said it's our patriotic duty, like a victory garden, to help your neighbors, like if they had inspired like that,
yep,
people would be able to stick with it. They would have been able to see the purpose and the dignity and being kind to other people.
No, absolutely.
But as it is, like, seriously, we're a country of sociopaths.
No, I argued
in it for themselves, and it's horrifying to watch.
No, I argued that had Trump come out in the beginning and said, look, we don't know what it is, but basic common sense of stay away from each other, wear a mask, and wash your hands, because that's the basic. Everyone knows that. That's how you don't get the flu that way. We've known that since we were little kids. It's what we were told. Don't cough and sneeze on your neighbor. Stay away from each other. Don't breathe on each other. The mask thing just helps you not breathe on each other. Had he come out and said, look, I want my patriots, I want my Trump twits to go out and make sure everyone's wearing a mask, he would have won re-election hand down without question.
I'm with you. If he had done that, we would be saying second term Mr. Trump right now. But he didn't. And the thing is, he's not capable. I was thinking about it, like, what are people in politics who look at all these things and try to play the chess game? What did they think about it? And they were like, he's not going to choose the right thing. He never chooses the right thing. It's why he went bankrupt in every business he ever started, because when you have a fork in the road, A or B, he always chooses the wrong one.
Yeah. It's like the Churchill.
It was inevitable that he would do this.
Yeah, it's like the Churchill quote. Americans always make the right decision after doing everything else first.
We may have taken that to the extreme this time.
Yeah, I mean that's the scary thing. So, last line of questioning I have for you, because obviously we're not going to do the right thing between now and January 20th. And I know this may sound like a broken record, but what should people do to protect themselves between now and January 20th?
Seriously, right now we have a situation like Italy where when the Italian hospitals were overrun, they literally locked the door of the hospital. They had no extra oxygen, no beds, no staff. They had nothing to offer anybody that came, and they didn't want to give them false hope or have to sit there and explain to them, so they just shut the doors. And people were dying right on the steps of the hospitals. We now have 3 states that we have Rhode Island and New Mexico are over their maximum number of beds right now. We have epidemiologists in Arizona just this week have very clearly stated that within a week they're going to be overrun, and it's going to be, at least 6 weeks before any recovery happens. So we are literally going into the bowels of hell right now. And anybody, you need to treat this like it is a life or death situation. Stay in your home. Stay away from people. If you're even walking outside on the sidewalk, you need to be wearing a mask. You need to stay 12 feet away from people if you can stay that far away from them. Stay
they're
away
6 feet
from
and yours.
Any enclosed space where people have been. We're talking about gas stations, bathrooms, restaurants, bars. Get out of the bars. Do not go in a bar. That is where this is spreading, in restaurants and bars. From now on, like 0. You cannot go to a bar or restaurant right now. I'm sorry. Our government needs to give them money so they can last through this, but you cannot go to restaurants and bars. You cannot go to places that are enclosed where lots of people are. It's just not safe right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Last question I've got for you, because something just popped into my head. I was reading a nurse's comments, and she said that they've switched to disaster charting. Is that what you were talking about a second ago about closing the doors? This idea of disaster charting. What does disaster charting mean?
Well, we chart a bunch of things that are for the bean counters, for statistical analysis, but mainly for money, for the hospital to get more money. And what they're saying is that they don't have time to chart. Is that, like, if you go to Africa and do volunteer medicine, you may have 1,000 people lined up to want to see you, and you don't make charts on these people. You just start seeing them. You just take care of them as fast as you can.
Okay.
And right now, if you see 2 patients in an hour, it may take you 45 minutes to do the charting. It's like that had to go. So many of these people that are being seen right now who have disabilities, the record of what happened to them is not going to be very clear.
Okay, because this woman was saying they're just completely blown away and overwhelmed in Pittsburgh, and she's at her wit's end, and I saw that disaster charting, and I'm glad you clarified that for me. That's again.
I can't even tell you the emotional trauma that's happening right now across the nation. It pains me every day. I just wake up every day hoping that Donald Trump will run for it and Biden can be seated early, because every single hour, every day that this goes on, the financial and health devastation, the families, the communities, it's growing exponentially. It's very bad.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for new leadership. It's not possible for him to take over.
Yeah, go and
It's just not. As much as I wanted, it's not. But Dr. Sennholz, I appreciate the time, the information. Always great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick, for everything. Thank you so much.
Our good friend, Dr. Kelly Sennholz. And look, we've been having these conversations over and over again for the last several months. And while this may sound repetitive, evidently we're still not getting it. And I'm going to finish up with the Los Angeles County Supervisor, a woman named Sheila Kuehl, Kuehl, however that's pronounced. Evidently, they had protesters outside of her house in Santa Monica, because she's out there saying that, hey, we should be doing stuff and taking care of each other, and kind of the stuff that we're talking about. The protesters are outside of her house because she said, "Oh, what the hell? I'm going to go out to dinner." She voted to ban outdoor dining, and there she is out there, outdoor dining. Hypocrite. If you're gonna say it, you got to do it, and don't push laws on other people. If I saw our governor, and Governor Wolf, I think has done a very good job here in Pennsylvania of doing what he can to keep even the stupid people safe. If he were out, somewhere, I'd be protesting him. It's just that simple. But again, this is one of those moments where, Dr. Sennholz is right. We're coming into a very, from everybody that I've talked to, everything that I've read, coming into a really ugly period over these next couple of months. So the common sense, again, stay away from each other. Don't breathe on each other. Wash your hands. Seems kind of simple, doesn't it? We can do that, right? At least I hope we can. And maybe we'll stay out of what is left of our hospital system. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show.